Hey my dear friends, Sam Haymart with Test Driven TV. Today we're test driving the 2021 Cadillac CT4 Premium Luxury. Now this is my first time test driving this car, so I'm pretty excited to do that myself. So I'm going to show it to you inside and out, take it for a test drive, and then I'm going to tell you what I really think. All right, my friends, before we get out in the test drive, let's talk about what we've got with the Cadillac CT4 Premium Luxury Trim Grade. It really sort of falls in the middle, and with the options, this one prices out at about $45,000 and some change. This is a vehicle that is the entry point in the sedan lineup from Cadillac, and so size-wise it compares with Lexus IS, the Infiniti Q50, and as you look up to some of the Germans, perhaps the C-Class, and the 3 Series, though those cars are slightly larger. This really comes in at more of an entry point, both in size and in price. As equipped, we've got 18-inch alloy wheels, which are very handsome. I'm glad they're not black for a change. I've never really been into the black wheel thing, and I just think this has a classier look. The grille, a nice detailed grille. Cadillac has really done this nice signature daytime running light that you can see coming down the road. It sort of has the vertical slats that are reminiscent of some of the Cadillacs of the 70s, I think. And of course, these are modern headlights though, full LED. It's a nice square chisel look that I think is very handsome overall. Coming down the side, you can see this has a nice subtle shoulder line that gives it a sort of classic Cadillac look, at least as of the last couple of decades. Looking at the rear, I like the way the taillights and the deck lid and the bumper all sort of come together. These are LED taillights, of course. Down on the lower bumper are some nice exhaust finishers, and I call them finishers because they're not tips per se, but air does blow through them. They're not entirely fake like some of the German brands out there, Audi, Mercedes-Benz, for example, where they're just trim pieces that don't have any function whatsoever. Air does blow through these, and so I hand it to Cadillac for keeping it real. The interior of the CT4 is actually a very pleasing place to look at. Here I've got a combination of cinnamon and black, which is very nice to the eyes in my opinion. You've got some stitching that has a nice accent to it, and that goes into the door panels as well. There's some nice metal trims in here too that have a satin finish that are very tasteful to look at, and that flows into the switchgear on the center stack, down on the console. I will say that the center stack up here near the screen, it looks like maybe different people designed this. There's this piece of plastic right here with 2 knobs in it that has a metallic finish on it, and 2 filler panels next to the infotainment screen. Compared to the rest of the interior, it just kind of looks like it wasn't quite designed up to the same standard. And these seats, which are both heated and ventilated, the first thing I found with sitting in these is that while they're very comfortable, over long periods of time, they are a little bit on the firm side. These seats are both power operated, and there is memory for the driver. As I sit here and look forward, I've got a very comfortable leather steering wheel with paddle shifters. These are plastic paddles, not necessarily the most expensive feeling ones out there in the market, but it's a nice steering wheel with controls that has a nice tasteful look, especially with the Cadillac crest across the center of it. The instrument cluster, 2 dials with actually 2 different layers of digital screen in the center. That's actually kind of an interesting look, and you can option this with a package that gives you a head-up display and a much more involved center display. The center console has a very clever layout. There is a platform up here at the front for your phone. It has a wireless charger built in there on this one. The gear shift is actually it's an electronic toggle, but it does work intuitively enough that I'm not going to complain about it. Cup holders off to the side, and they're actually designed such that you can put big gas station cups in here if that's your thing. And behind it you've got a puck for the infotainment system, though it is a touchscreen and you can use it entirely there. It does give you controls back here so you don't have to reach all the way, and then controls back here for a few other things, including the auto start-stop system. The center console storage is not the largest in the world. It's about the size of perhaps a single Kleenex box, but it's a little bit narrow and not that deep. There's enough room for most things you're going to store in there. And right here, there's a place for your phone. If it doesn't have a case, it can slide right down into that slot. That's pretty clever. Ah, you found me. I am in the back of a compact luxury sedan, and that hasn't gone unnoticed here. This does have a very low seating position. I feel like I'm in a bit of a bucket seat. My knees are kind of up like this, and these seats set for my height, about 5'8", with my shoes on. I wouldn't want a 6-footer sitting in front of me. So the space is a little bit truncated, let's say, but not unlike some of the other competitors, particularly the Lexus IS, very similar to this. This is a car that's mostly for the driver and the front passengers. The back seat is going to be something a little bit less comfortable for larger full-size people. There is 3 across seating here, but I wouldn't want to be the middle passenger. There are vents back here, so at least, while, you know, sort of packaged tightly, you will be cool, and there is a 12-volt charging port, but no USB charging ports back here. This seat does fold down in a 60-40 split to allow longer items to come through from the trunk, and the trunk space is actually pretty impressive if you look at it. It's got a sort of dual level design, so you've got enough height there to put a few other things, and part of that's because there's no spare tire underneath of that. Again, not unlike a lot of sedans in this class, this does not come with a spare tire, but instead an emergency inflator kit. When it comes to giving this interior a score, I'm pretty pleased with it overall. There were a couple little details in the design that I didn't think fit up to the rest of it, but the level of material quality in here, the switchgear quality, and the comfort is pretty good. I give this interior 4 out of 5 stars. The infotainment system here is the optional Bose system with an 8-inch touchscreen in the center. Now, that really is the first thing that's jumping out at me. And a lot of the competitors at this price, you see much larger screens. This one, it does look like something shared with perhaps some other Chevrolet products. It's not necessarily what I might expect in a luxury car. Now, it does have lots of functionality: AM, FM, Sirius XM, Bluetooth connectivity with near-field communication, and it does have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with wireless connectivity. So it does have all the bells and whistles. It does have nav, voice activated, and a nice backup camera too. The sound quality from the Bose audio system, 8 speakers, exceptional. The one thing I would complain about is visibility. It's a small screen, as I mentioned, not quite as large as a lot of competitors, and it's not shrouded from the sunlight, so you do get glare depending on where you're driving and at what time of day. All in, I give this infotainment system 4 out of 5 stars. All right, now you've heard me babble about seats and radios and things like that long enough. Now we're actually going to go for a drive. And the first question I always love to ask is, how does it go? So we'll come to a complete stop. Nobody around. And 60. All right, well, this thing does have some pretty good power, 310 horsepower to be exact, 350 pound-feet of torque. Now, what gives us that? Well, this is interesting. A 2.7 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. That's a big 4-cylinder engine, and it goes through a 10-speed automatic transmission. Now, the thing about this engine that has to be pointed out here, it's the elephant in the room, is the fact that this is an engine that was designed and engineered for the Chevrolet full-size pickup truck. It's a truck motor. It's a truck motor. Did you hear that? It's a truck motor. So what does that mean? Well, it's a big 4-cylinder. So forget the truck part. It's noisy because it's a big engine. It's a big 4-cylinder. It makes a lot of noise, okay? And it's not the most refined engine in the class. If you look at Lexus, Infiniti, Mercedes, BMW, all their Turbo 4s are like sewing machines. And while this isn't bad, it's just a little more coarse. So that's really something that I need to point out. You may have heard it there. Now, performance is good though. It has a nice power curve, and with this 10-speed automatic transmission, works pretty good for the most part, though I have tested this transmission in a lot of cars and trucks, both from Ford and Chevrolet. It works very well, but I will have to say in this particular application, I'm not sure they got the tuning just quite 100%. It tends to, well, not be as good as it is in the other cars that I've tested. But that leads us to the last part of the powertrain conversation, and that is fuel efficiency. 4-cylinder turbos are all the rage right now to give us more fuel efficiency. Well, this is rated at 21 city, 31 highway, and 25 mpg combined. Now, on the face of it, that doesn't sound all that impressive. But the thing that really sort of disappoints me here is that in my week with it, not driving like we're doing today, normal driving, I only achieved about 21 mpg. 21 from a 4-cylinder. Okay, so, geez, you know, I have to think, if this had the 3.6 liter V6 that GM builds, that other Cadillacs have, we'd probably be in the same place when it comes to MPG, and we'd have an engine that's just a little bit more, well, it fits the luxury build. But so I'm not complaining too much. This is an engine that I actually found very pleasing in my week with driving it. It just does have a few things that you have to look at when you start comparing it to the other luxury brands. But overall, given all of these things we have discussed, powertrain comes in at 3.5 out of 5 stars. When it comes to the overall ride and drive experience, the first thing I have to tell you right out of the gate is I'm actually very impressed with this chassis. This is a rear-wheel drive compact sedan. Not very many manufacturers are doing this anymore. Mercedes, BMW, their entry-level sedans have now gone to front-wheel drive. Yuck! Why would you spend money on that? Here, you get a car that's priced very similar to those, yet we give you rear-wheel drive. Cattle guard. Now, what does that mean? Well, this is a car that, it's a chassis that's pretty impressive. I've driven variations of it before. It feels solid, it feels expensive, very little noise, road noise, very subdued. This is noisy pavement here, wind noise good. But this is a car that has a nice steering feel, the brakes work well, it has a nice intuitive feel to how it reacts to your inputs. And the best part about it is that the suspension tune is constant. This doesn't have the adaptive suspension you'll get when you step up the ladder on the trim grades. Therefore, it's one setting for everything. And so they didn't necessarily give us a compromised thing. So what that means is around town, speed bumps, potholes, things like that, this has got a comfortable ride that's compliant enough not to make living with it a chore. Yet, when you bring it out here to the open road and throw it into a curve, it gives you the confidence you want, and it makes it fun to drive. Puts a smile on your face. So I really admire the job they've done here in tuning this chassis, as well as giving us something of quality. And that does come from the hardware. We've got a dual ball joint front suspension, same thing most all of the other competitors have. We've got a 5-link independent rear, and everything's just bolted together really well. So I'm impressed. Chassis gets 5 out of 5 stars. Cattle guard. All right, my dear friends, now it's time to try to put a value score on this car. And so I have to tell you, I'm very impressed with this car. I've driven almost all of its competitors, and this is a car that I was just really impressed with overall. Its driving experience, the riding, the interior, and even though it's not perfect, we had a few things we talked about, like the refinement of the engine could be a little bit better, a few details on the interior. This is a car that's a nice overall package. And when you look at how it prices out compared to Lexus, Infiniti, especially BMW, Mercedes-Benz, Audi, this is a car that offers a nice value play at $45,000 with the features it has. So when it comes to putting a value score on this, I look at pricing, both base pricing, options pricing, very good there. Competitiveness, yes, some of the competitors offer more refinement. And warranty coverage, though, it's one of the best in the business. 4 years, 50,000 miles for the bumper to bumper, 6 years, 60,000 miles for powertrain. That truck engine's gonna last, man. So I put value score at 4.5 out of 5 stars. When you put that in with everything we've already talked about, we're at 4 out of 5 stars for the review. And you know what else? I like it well enough that it goes on my buy list for 2021. Yeah, I would buy this thing. I totally like it. It just goes to show that a car doesn't have to be perfect to be a buying opportunity. This just has a nice rounded palette of things that push my buttons, even though the engine could be a little bit more refined. We talked about that more than once. I still like it well enough to put it in my garage. So there you go. Yeah. So if you like the review you just saw, I invite you to see my latest one right there, or better yet, subscribe to my YouTube channel down there. Either way, stay tuned.